Watch it, Alan. I'm shooting.
Hello all out there in YouTube, and welcome back to my channel, and a Happy New Year from Raina. She's a happy 8-month-old German Shepherd puppy. We're at her house for the next week or so, and if you've been on my channel before, this location may seem familiar to you. I used to take care of this German Shepherd named Sadie, who was one of my first clients since I got into pet sitting and stuff like that. Sadly, she passed away over a year ago now. But the owners have a new dog named Raina. Sadie will be sadly missed by all of us, of course, but Raina is a very good girl, and she has allowed us to film in her house. So typical disclaimer, I apologize if the audio is off, I apologize if the lighting is weird. This is just the best location in this house to film, and I apologize if you hear any puppy noises in the background, because this is Raina's house after all. But anyway, on that note, we will get into the video. We've made it to the end of another year. We are now going from 2025 into 2026. And as usual, many YouTubers around this time of year talk about their top 10 favorite movies from the past year. And because I am incredibly original, I want to do the same thing. I mean, I want to play too, after all. So yes, we're getting many countdowns of favorite movies and favorite horror movies from many of us who like to dive into horror on this particular platform. This year, when it comes to horror, I thought it was an okay year for horror. I did see plenty of movies that I enjoyed throughout the year, but there were a lot of movies that I kind of felt meh on. Luckily, I was able to find 10 movies that I either really liked or flat out loved. I don't know if I'm alone here, but I wasn't as excited for a lot of the releases that were coming out this year. Not that there weren't movies that I was interested in seeing, but I didn't find myself as excited for the new releases of horror this year. But then, of course, as the year went on, we started getting more movies released that I wanted to check out and that I had more interest in. And I found myself getting very surprised by a few movies, but I definitely saw some films that I absolutely loved this year. It just, for me personally, it wasn't as difficult to pick my top 10 of the year, because I thought the majority of horror movies that came out this year were mostly okay. There are more movies that I'm interested that are coming out next year that I am more interested in seeing than movies that came out this year. But because of that, I also checked out a lot of horror movies that I have wanted to see for a long time, and digging through the years and finding movies that I have not watched. And I have watched a lot of good stuff this year from years that have already come and gone. So because of that, I wanted to do 2 videos this year. We're starting off with my top 10 favorite horror movies from 2025, and then my next video is going to be top 10 horror movies that I watched in 2025. Not movies that were from 2025 or at the very least premiered or distributed to theaters in 2025, but movies from previous years that I finally watched this year that I want to talk about. So yeah, I've seen other YouTubers do that, and like I said at the beginning, I want to play too, so I wanted to do that this year. So for this video, we're doing my top 10 favorite horror movies from 2025, and then in the next video, we're going to do my top 10 discoveries of 2025. There are still a lot of stuff that I have not checked out yet, just because, you know, with my schedule and how things have been going and a lot of life stuff, I haven't had a chance to see them yet. But I do definitely want to check them out, and I may talk about them in another video sometime. The 3 movies from 2025 that I have not seen that I am the most interested in is 28 Years Later, The Gorge, and Good Boy. I've been wanting to check those movies out, but for one reason or another, I just haven't checked them out yet. There's no real excuse for that. It's just something I guess I'm kind of procrastinating on. I know 28 Years Later has gotten mixed reviews, but I still want to see it because I'm very curious to check out the Bone Temple. And I want to watch it and make up my own mind on that whole thing. And I'm very interested in checking out Good Boy because of what I do for a living and the fact that I work with dogs for a living. That's made me very curious to check out that one. But anyway, we're going to get into my top 10 favorite horror movies from 2025. But before we do that, I'm going to say some honorable mentions. When it comes to my end of the year list, my honorable mentions are a little different than how other people do them. These aren't necessarily movies that I absolutely loved that just didn't make it into the top 10. These are movies that I either liked but didn't love, or movies that I kind of disliked, but I think they're worth for other people to check out because I can see other people liking them more than me. And that's why I suggest people checking them out. So yes, we'll start off with my honorable mentions of movies that I think are worth checking out if you have not seen them yet. The first honorable mention is The Monkey, directed by Osgood Perkins. I wanted to talk about this one because Osgood Perkins is a director that I want to like his work more than I do. I enjoyed Blackcoat's Daughter. Long Legs I liked, but I didn't love, and that's pretty much the same way I feel about The Monkey. It's a movie I want to love more than I do, and that's the case with all of the movies that he has made that I have seen. I want to like them more than I do, but he definitely has a fan base. Like, for many people, Long Legs was their favorite horror movie of the year, and a lot of people praise Blackcoat's Daughter. And The Monkey does have its fans out there. But I wanted to talk about, I wanted to put this one in the honorable mentions because, yes, it did not work for me, but Osgood Perkins is a director that I'm hoping he makes a movie eventually that works for me. You know, a lot of people enjoyed The Monkey, a lot of people enjoy his other movies, so I do recommend checking this out if you're a fan of Osgood Perkins. I have not had a chance to see The Keeper, but anyway, I am hoping that he eventually has a movie that wins me over completely. It just hasn't happened yet, so that's why I'm putting The Monkey on the list. Then we have Dangerous Animals. I am shocked that I did not like this movie as much as everybody else. There are a lot of people who loved this movie, and I wanted to love this movie, but I found myself just liking it. Because if you've been on my channel, you know a movie like this should work for me. Because I love animal attack flicks, that is my comfort genre. I love serial killer movies, and this is a combination of both. There is good tension in the film, and there are really good likable characters in here. And the main actress in here is one of the best final girls we have gotten in a long time. But for some reason, I did not fall in love with this movie. I really wanted to, but I just was not able to. Maybe if I watch it again sometime in the future, it will work for me more. Because it is an interesting premise. It's about a serial killer who kidnaps people and feeds them to sharks. And that is a frightening concept to me. For some reason, I couldn't love this movie, but a lot of other people did love it, so I do recommend checking it out. One, because I love serial killer movies and I love animal attack movies, and I am always happy when something like that gets more success, because then we might get some more of it. You know, as an animal attack fan and a fan of serial killer movies, I am happy that this movie has a following because I love those genres. It just didn't completely work for me. Next honorable mention is Death of a Unicorn. The only reason that this movie is on this list is because it's a movie that has done something that I have been wanting to happen more often in film. I talk all the time about how much I love mythology and looking into mythology and studying all these different creatures from mythology, and I have said so many times that there are so many monsters or creatures from mythology that could make for a good horror movie. And while a unicorn has been used many times in fantasy and is not some obscure unknown creature, many people know about unicorns. Unicorns have been featured in fiction many times. I was happy to see a horror movie around a unicorn. I was happy to see a horror movie around a monster that wasn't just your typical vampire movie or werewolf movie or zombie movie or things like that. Don't go in expecting anything mind-blowing. I do think the story could have been used a little better. They do take the unicorns and just make them into, and just put them in a generic monster movie, which is still fun in itself. I do wish there was something more, but I am happy that we have a horror movie about unicorns, even if it is just a generic monster movie. So I do think it's worth checking it out because I want to see more mythical creatures used in horror movies. And the last honorable mention before we get into the top 10 is Companion. I did very much enjoy Companion. Now, a lot of people, when it came to this movie, they complained that the trailer spoiled the twist of the film. That twist happens in the first 15 minutes of the movie, and I don't think it ruins the film at all. And here, kind of the thing I wonder is, I wonder if that twist was not included in the trailer, if people would have gone and seen this movie. Because I think if the twist was not featured in the trailer, people would have probably thought this was just a generic kind of isolation thriller, something along the line of those, romantic, steamy, sexual tension kind of thrillers. But anyway, so I wonder if people would have seen it if that twist was not featured in the trailer. But anyway, I knew the twist going in and it did not ruin it for me. So I won't go into details of it, but if you have seen Companion, you know what the movie is about. This almost made my top 10, but the reason it ended up being knocked off my top 10 is because I watched a movie that had similar themes, and I watched it this year. I'm not going to say what the title is because I'm going to be featuring it in the next video, but I watched a movie that explored similar themes as Companion, and that movie affected me more than Companion did. Not that Companion is a bad movie. I really think it's worth checking out, and the themes it explores are very unnerving. The way I would explain it is where Companion is, the movie is kind of like a slap in the face. The other movie that I'm going to be talking about in my next video is a kick in the balls with this kind of subject matter and the themes it's exploring and what it's trying to say with these ideas. So yes, Companion, slap in the face, other movie, kick in the balls. And that's why, in the end, Companion kind of got knocked off the top 10. But I do still think it's a good movie and worth watching. And it's probably a more accessible movie. Not accessible, but it's not as messed up as the movie I'm going to be talking about in my next video. So I think Companion is more digestible to people. But anyway, yes, so those are my honorable mentions. 4 movies that I didn't love, but I do think they're worth checking out, and I can see plenty of people liking them more than me, or I just want people to support these movies so we can get more movies like those, I think. So anyway, so on that note, let us get into my top 10 favorite horror movies from 2025. And once again, get prepared for a lot of rambling, because I tend to ramble in these kinds of videos. At number 10, we have Together. Together is a body horror movie, and I am so happy that it looks like we're getting some more body horror movies, because I love body horror, and we seem to be getting a slight resurgence in body horror movies. I do hope we see more as the years go on. But Together is a body horror movie, and I was very happy to be able to see a body horror movie in the theaters. The only reason it is not higher on my list is because I thought it kind of fell apart in the third act. Not to a level where it ruins the movie for me, but I do wish, the third act did things a little different, but that's just personal taste, so I gotta admit that. The basic premise of it is you have this young couple who is on the outs. It's 2 people who should not be together. Hey, there's the title. 2 people who should not be together. It's not a good relationship for either one of them, and it's one of those situations where they should just go their separate ways. The guy is trying to get a musical career to take off, and because of that he doesn't really have a job, and his girlfriend is kind of the breadwinner of the family, and so because of their situation some resentment is building between the 2 of them, and long story short, they should not be together. But they end up going to this cabin in the woods, and then something happens that is kind of forcing them to be drawn together. And that is a frightening concept that is leads to some darkly comedic scenes, as well as some very intense scenes. Um, and it is a fantastic body horror movie to an extent. But like I said, the only thing that prevents it from making it higher on this list is because I think it kind of falls apart in the third act. First of all, like the way these characters seem to be going throughout the film, I'm interested in. You know, like again, this relationship that feels like it's on the outs, and these two people that look like they're getting ready to go their separate ways, but they're now being forced together. That's a very interesting dynamic. But then as we, not to spoil a lot, but as it gets into the third act, like characters start acting differently in a way that doesn't make sense. You know, like the certain characters are going one direction, but then as it gets into the third act, they go into a different direction, and it doesn't make sense that they're going in that direction, at least to me. The main thing that I won't give away anything, I won't spoil anything, but the main thing for me that kind of made it fall apart in the third act is I think the movie explains too much as we get into the third act. There's so much there that I think would have been so much better if it were left vague. There's a lot of stuff that I don't think needed any kind of explanation, but they ended up explaining things in the third act, and for me it kind of took the movie down a little for me. There are things revealed in the first two acts that lead into things in the third act, and like while I didn't mind those things in the first two acts, the fact that they were explained in the third act, it just kind of took the movie down a little bit more for me. I just think this would have been much better if more stuff was left vague and not everything was explained, but despite that, I do think Together is a good movie. A lot of people loved this movie, a lot of people did not like the movie, so it's not as divisive as other films that came out this year, but this one is slightly divisive. But anyway, it is a great movie, a good body horror movie, and if you're a body horror fan, I think you will enjoy it. Just keep in mind that I thought it fell apart a little in the third act, so if you go into that, keep that in mind, but you might not be as bothered by the stuff in the third act as I was, so just saying that, I think Together is a good body horror movie that is worth checking out, especially if you're a body horror fan. At number 9, we have the Toxic Avenger remake. Now, I am cheating in two ways with this spot. One, the Toxic Avenger remake had its festival run in 2023, so it technically was released in 2023, but it didn't get its wide release until 2025, so I'm counting it as a 2025 movie. And another reason why I'm kind of cheating is because with the original Toxic Avenger and this new Toxic Avenger, I do view them as more action movies and not really as horror movies. I guess you could say they're more horror adjacent. But I've always viewed the original Toxic Avenger, and I feel the same with this one, that even though these movies are not technically horror movies, they have been accepted into the horror genre by horror fans because what other genre would have them? So because of that, I decided to put it on this list. And because I had such a good time with this movie, I wanted to include it on my top 10 list. So, yeah, there we go. So I love the original Toxic Avenger. I am a fan of trauma films. The original Toxic Avenger, I am not ashamed to admit this, it's my favorite superhero movie. And I would put it in like my top 50 favorite movies of all time. It's a film that I absolutely love. I love the original Toxic Avenger. And I had a very good time with the Toxic Avenger remake. One, because since I love Trauma and I love the Toxic Avenger, it just felt good to see a Toxic Avenger movie on the big screen. I love supporting low-budget independent cinema, and this is a perfect example of low-budget independent cinema. And of course, Trauma is one of the longest-running independent studios out there. And I just had the best time watching this in theaters. The entire time I watched this in theaters, I had a big grin on my face. There's some good gore in this movie, and I appreciate how while it's similar to the Toxic Avenger, it's not just talking about the Toxic Avenger again. Even so much so where they didn't just design the Toxic Avenger to look exactly like the Toxic Avenger from the original. They did something different here, and when I watch a remake, I want to see them do something different. The person I give the most credit to with this film is Luisa Guerrero, who was a stunt performer, and she was the one in the Toxic Avenger costume throughout the film. Peter Dinklage is the voice of Toxie, and he's the Toxic Avenger before he becomes the Toxic Avenger. And while he does a good job in the film, I give a lot more credit to Luisa Guerrero, because not only is she playing the Toxic Avenger, she's trying to match Peter Dinklage's mannerisms. So she's not just playing the Toxic Avenger, she's playing Peter Dinklage as the Toxic Avenger. And for that, I think it's one of the best performances of the year. But it has a lot of fun, low-budget gore. It has a good amount of sleaze in there. Not as much sleaze as you see in other Troma films, but more sleaze than you would see in a lot of movies that get released in theaters nowadays. And that kind of warms my heart as someone who loves Troma, as someone who loves low to micro budget movies, as someone who loves movies that aren't afraid to push the envelope when it comes to sleaze and gore and stuff like that. I was so happy to be able to watch this on the big screen. The Toxic Avenger remake is never going to reach the levels of something like the original Toxic Avenger or other Troma movies. But I still loved this. It's one of my favorite theater experiences of the year, one of them. And I heard that there are talks of a sequel to Poultrygeist in the works. I love Poultrygeist, and it looks like there's going to be a sequel coming out. I'm wondering if the success of the new Toxic Avenger is what's leading to that. If this leads to more Troma movies coming out, I will be very happy. But yes, I loved the Toxic Avenger remake. I had so much fun with it. As a Toxic Avenger fan, I had a good time with this movie. It will never reach the same level as the Toxic Avenger or other Troma movies, but as a Toxic Avenger fan, I am just happy that a Toxic Avenger movie got a somewhat wide theatrical release. At number 8, we have Strange Harvest. The best way I can describe this movie is, if you liked the Poughkeepsie tapes, you will be interested in this movie. This film is nowhere near as dark as the Poughkeepsie tapes. It's not as disturbing as the Poughkeepsie tapes, but it is a similar vein to the Poughkeepsie tapes, with a little more of a supernatural twist to it. So this film is set up like the Poughkeepsie tapes. It's a fake documentary about a fake serial killer. And it takes the whole idea of a fake documentary and the idea of found footage and merges them together, which is a great way to do found footage, especially for someone like me who has such a hard time getting into found footage movies. I'm someone who wants to love found footage movies more than I do, and because of that, whenever I find a found footage movie that I like or love, I have to talk about it because I'm someone who wants to love found footage movies more than I do. I have such a hard time getting into found footage movies, so when I find a found footage movie that I like, you can definitely take that to the bank. And this is a very good found footage movie, and like I said, it is helped by the fact that it is done in this documentary style. The movie deals with this serial killer called Mr. Shiny, and the main characters of this movie are two detectives who are being interviewed for this documentary, talking about their investigation with Mr. Shiny. Because Mr. Shiny is connected to murders that were done years ago, and then many years have passed, and now the murders are starting up again. And Mr. Shiny is like starting to toy with the police now as they're trying to find out who he is. And there's something so mysterious about Mr. Shiny and the kills that he's doing. And what we have here is a serial killer movie mixed with a cosmic horror movie. I love cosmic horror movies. It's one of my all-time favorite genre, and I love when we get new cosmic horror movies and seeing other people get interested in them, because it leads me to hope that we will eventually get more cosmic horror movies. Cosmic horror is a hard genre to do right. And I do think that Strange Harvest does it right. Because the best way to do a cosmic horror is to not explain much. To give little hints of what's going on, but to keep a lot more vague. Give people enough to make them afraid, explain enough so that people have an idea of what's going on, but not much knowledge of what's going on, so that there's a greater mystery than just the facts that we know. And I think Strange Harvest does handle that very well. And the fact that it's wrapped in a serial killer movie first, because as we're watching this, at first it starts out like a serial killer movie. And then as the story goes on, more stuff is revealed, and then you're thinking, oh, is this some kind of weird cult folk horror kind of thing? But then as it keeps going, it seems to be a much greater thing, and that's when it starts going into the cosmic horror of it all. And it creates this it makes this smaller story seem so much bigger than it is. And I love when horror movies do that, when they take a small story but make it seem a lot bigger. Because horror is a very personal genre. I think it's one of the most personal genres out there. And when you can keep things small but have bigger ideas behind it, I think it works so well. And Strange Harvest does that. It's a very interesting story. The movie does a good job at giving you little nuggets as the film goes on to keep you more and more interested in the mystery, especially since because it's cosmic horror, it's a mystery that we're not necessarily going to get all the answers to. And I do think it has a satisfying conclusion. There are moments where, like, the third act gets really, really intense. Because, now, the way things are set up throughout the film, the movie goes in certain directions so that when it gets to the third act, and I don't want to spoil it here, but it looks like something is going to happen. Something really gnarly and really disturbing is going to happen. And because of things that have happened throughout the film, you're debating on if the movie is going to go there. You think the movie could go to this really dark place. It just does such a good job at setting up for this third act, setting up this really fucked up way that this movie could go, and you believe that there's a very good chance that it could go down this route. I won't say whether it does or doesn't, but just keep in mind, yeah, it goes to some very dark territory, and yeah. Strange Harvest, a good found footage movie that I like, and if I like found footage movies, that means it's definitely worth checking out because I'm very hard to please when it comes to this genre. So, Strange Harvest, if you're a found footage man, check it out. If you're a fan of the Poughkeepsie tapes, check it out. If you like cosmic horror, check it out. It is a very good mix of a found footage movie, a serial killer movie, and a cosmic horror movie. At number 7, we have Bring Her Back. This movie was directed by the Philippus brothers, Danny Philippus and Michael Philippus. These are the same people who did Talk to Me, which is a very popular horror movie. They were YouTubers that wanted to make their own horror movie. They made Talk to Me, which was a big hit amongst horror fans, and then this is their second horror movie. Now, I liked Talk to Me. I just didn't like it as much as everyone else. I've only seen it once. Maybe on repeat viewings it will grow on me more. But when I watched it, I found myself liking it, not loving it. I really liked it. It was like very close to love, but I didn't find myself loving it as much as everyone else. I like Talk to Me. I like Bring Her Back more. What I do like about both Talk to Me and Bring Her Back, the two movies that these filmmakers have done, is they go with familiar ideas, but take their own spin on them. Like, Bring Her Back, Talk to Me is like a ghost movie, kind of a ghost possession movie, but it is, in many ways, a ghost movie, and a possession movie, and they took it in an interesting new direction. Similar with Bring Her Back, this is definitely more of a possession movie, but I think it is one of the more original possession movies out there. Possession movies is a very tired genre. I'm not the only person who thinks that. There are many of other people who think that. There are definitely fans of possession movies out there, and not to rain on anyone's parade, but there are many of us who think that the possession genre is a very tired genre. Because so many times possession movies have the same thing. And, someone tied to a bed getting possessed by a demon, somebody comes in to try and exorcise the demon. This movie does a possession movie in a very unique way. There are definitely some cliches that you see in other possession movies, but this takes possession and dives a little more into folk horror in many ways, with a hint of cosmic horror, just a little bit though. But this is definitely more of a folk horror, psychological horror kind of thing. It has some similarities to Pet Sematary, so if you love Pet Sematary, keep that in mind when going in. This is a bummer of a movie. It is very depressing, very dark, and I love dark horror movies, I love fun horror movies, I love horror movies across the board. And this is a very messed up horror movie. There are some gore scenes in here that made me wince. It's not as graphic as other horror movies, but there is a graphicness to a lot of the gore, and there's a simplicity to a lot of the gore. There's a scene that involves a knife that when I saw it, I literally shuddered. It was just like, it's not often that a movie gets that kind of physical reaction out of me, but that happened while watching Bring Her Back, and a movie I'm going to talk about in the next video. But yeah, it's one of those gore scenes where when it happens you can kind of feel it, and it's kind of painful to watch. Like, you watch it, you feel it, it's like, oh god, what would that be like? I love the setup to this movie. I think this is one of the creepiest movies of the year. I definitely want to check it out again. It is one of the more fucked up movies of the year, at least one of the most fucked up movies that got a wider release and is kind of being accepted by the mainstream in many ways. But yes, I want to rewatch Talk to Me. This movie made me want to watch Talk to Me again. Who knows, maybe I'll like Talk to Me even more when I watch it. I did like it, I just wish I loved it more. But anyway, so far these are two great horror movies by these filmmakers, and I cannot wait to see what they come up with in the future. Bring Her Back, one of the best fucked up horror movies of the year. We'll end this in the words of John Waters, get more out of life. See a fucked up movie. Anyway, on to the next one. So at number 6 we have The Ugly Stepsister. This is definitely my favorite body horror movie of the year, and it's a genre of body horror that could be explored a little more. This is medical body horror. You have body horror that is a little more on the supernatural side. This is more on the natural side of body horror. And it's a body horror movie mixed with a Descent into Madness movie. And you know how much I love body horror movies, you know how much I love Descent into Madness movies, and we're mixing both of them together, which just makes this a perfect movie for me to watch. This is a spin on the Cinderella fairy tale. We've been having a lot of movies recently where they take these childhood stories or childhood movies or childhood characters and making them into horror movies. I have not seen many of those. I have not seen Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, or the sequel. I have not seen the new Peter Pan one. I watched Bambi's Reckoning just because I'm an Animal Attack fan and I wanted to see what that movie did. And that movie's, it could have been better. But anyway, and this one is taking the Cinderella story and turning it into a horror movie. And I think it does a great job. It's not just telling... It is telling Cinderella, but from a different angle. We're focusing on the stepsister. And this is... a period piece, and it's a commentary on the beauty industry and the standards of beauty, because this is a woman who wants to win over the prince. The Cinderella character, she's not called Cinderella in this movie, but we'll just say Cinderella because we all know that's that's who she is. She's viewed a little more as the kind of antagonistic in this movie, but when you watch the film and you see what she goes through, I have a hard time calling her the antagonist. She's not the best person in this movie, but given how this movie goes, you kind of understand where she's coming from. The antagonist of this movie, I would say, is definitely the wicked stepmother. So, we have the ugly stepsister wanting to win over the prince. And because of that, she does a lot of medical things to her body to make herself more physically accepted by high society. And she goes some very dark, gnarly places with this. And because it is a body horror movie and a medical body horror movie, I think it is more of a squirming movie than anything else. Like, when you deal with medical body horror, it's like, it's something that gets you right in your bones, because we don't want anything bad to happen to our bodies. And, just the thought of basically mutilating yourself in ways to get you to be more physically accepted, it's just such a frightening thought. And it's, it is definitely a commentary on, the standards of beauty and what people will do to reach that standard of beauty. But it is also a descent into madness movie, so this woman is going through more and more extremes to try and get her to that point where the prince will accept her. And it does go some painful routes. I will say, the way everybody was talking about this movie, I was expecting something wildly disgusting, wildly fucked up. And while the movie does make you squirm and wince, I don't think it's as fucked up as everybody says it is. I've definitely seen worse. It's funny because I heard a lot of people talking about a specific sex scene in this movie and talking about, oh my god, this is the grossest sex scene I've ever seen in my life. It is the nastiest sex scene I've ever seen in my life. Oh, this movie. So when I went into this movie, I was like, oh god, like, what are they going to do here? How obscene is this going to be? And then it happened and I was like, that's it? Just what is that? I mean, it's fine. Everybody was talking about how messed up this sex scene was, and it's fine. Like, okay, the most you see is an erect penis, you see some fluids dripping on some hay, and you do see a woman bent over getting ready to receive a man. But it's nowhere near as bad as everybody says it is. I've definitely seen much more graphic. There are definitely movies that are more suggested that I think are even worse than this. It's just like, okay, it's an erect penis and some bodily fluids. You don't see the bodily fluid coming out. You don't see anybody entering anybody else. It's just an erect penis and some bodily fluid. If you have sex, you've seen that. If you've had sex, you have seen that. Just like, like anybody who freaks out about seeing a penis on screen is like, did you not have gym class? Did you not have to shower in gym class? My God, you're going to be fine. It's fine. Okay? It's literally not the worst thing I've ever seen. I think people blew that scene way out of proportion. But anyway, there are definitely some gross scenes in this movie, and there are definitely some scenes that make you squirm. But it is not nearly as graphic and as disgusting as people were making it out to be. It is definitely disgusting. But don't go in expecting that extreme. Expecting something gross, but not so gross to the point where it's, like, unwatchable. But this is still a fantastic movie. It's a fantastic body horror movie, it's a fantastic descent into madness movie, and it is a fantastic mix of those two genres that I love. So it was kind of hard for me not to like The Ugly Stepsister, given the two genres that it's mixing together. At number 5, we have the Silent Night, Deadly Night remake. Now, I love the original Silent Night, Deadly Night. I would put that in my top 10 favorite slasher movies. In terms of Killer Santa movies, it is beaten out by Christmas Evil, but they are two very different movies. The only thing they have in common is they both follow some nutjob dressed up as Santa Claus. But anyway, I love the original Silent Night, Deadly Night. In terms of slasher movies that follow the killer, I think it's one of the best. It doesn't quite reach the levels of Maniac for someone like me, but I do think it's one of the best horror movies one of the best slasher movies that follows the killer. And it's definitely a slasher movie that, dives into the psychology of the killer. I think it's very well done. So, going into the Silent Night, Deadly Night remake, all I wanted was a good, solid Christmas slasher movie. And I found myself getting more than that. While I don't quite love it as much as the original Silent Night, Deadly Night, I do think it's a great movie, and I would say probably is my second favorite of the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies. It does something that so many remakes miss. Understanding why the original works and capturing some of the essence of the original, but doing something completely different. While we are following the character of Billy, his journey is very different from Billy in the original Silent Night, Deadly Night. Now, in this one, they don't go into Billy's backstory as much as they do in the original Silent Night, Deadly Night. And that was one of the things I loved about the original, is we're seeing all this stuff that messed up Billy so much that eventually led him into becoming the killer Santa Claus. And while that is not done in the Silent Night, Deadly Night remake, it's something that we did not need to do because of the directions this movie goes in. I do not want to spoil it, but I will say, while at first it sounds like it's going to be your basic remake of Silent Night, Deadly Night, it goes in these directions that make it its own thing and make it a very different movie, but makes it a great movie. So much so where I do think it stands on its own as its own movie. While it does mix with the original Silent Night, Deadly Night, I think both movies can stand on their own because of how different and the different directions that the remake goes in. This is a great performance by Rowan Campbell, who plays Billy. When Halloween Ends came out, the thing that made me want to watch this movie, I'm going to give credit to Daniel from the Cobwebs channel for this. He said that it was like if, Rowan Campbell in Halloween Ends had his own movie that was not connected to Halloween and didn't have Michael Myers in it. And that was what intrigued me to watch this movie, because I loved Halloween Ends when Michael Myers and people from the original Halloween, or from the Halloween series, were not involved. When it was just Rowan Campbell and Laurie's granddaughter doing their thing, and Michael Myers was not involved, when it was just that basic story, I loved Halloween Ends. And then whenever Michael Myers showed up, I found myself getting disappointed. And I'm a Halloween fan. I love the original Halloween. It used to be my favorite horror movie of all time. But I didn't want to see him in Halloween Ends. I was so intrigued in this character's story that whenever Michael Myers showed up, I was thinking, go away! Stop interrupting this guy's story. And basically, as was explained by Daniel from the Cobwebs channel, it took that basic premise with Rowan Campbell in Halloween Ends, put him in his own movie, and focused on that. Basically everything that I wanted in Halloween Ends, I got in the Silent Night, Deadly Night remake. And it's ironic because this is a remake of Silent Night, Deadly Night. But anyway, just because I wanted to focus more on that character and Rowan Campbell as a killer, and that's basically what this movie does. And Rowan Campbell is great in this film. And there's Ruby Modine, who's also in this movie, and she does a great job. Basically, this is all I will have to say. If you were disappointed in Halloween Ends, you will like the Silent Night, Deadly Night remake, because it does what Halloween Ends did, removes all the stuff about Michael Myers, and just gives you a story about this guy who killed as a child and is, trying to live his life, going into madness, with this woman who has also experienced trauma, falling in love with him, and them forming a relationship, even though this guy is descending into madness. I hope I'm making sense here. I found myself loving Silent Night, Deadly Night because it gave me everything that I wanted out of Halloween Ends. We had Halloween Ends and we got a Christmas movie, so it's just, anyway. So yes, thank you to Daniel from the Cobwebs channel for mentioning that, because I will be honest, I would not have seen this movie if I did not hear that from you. But yeah, Silent Night, Deadly Night remake, fantastic movie, a fantastic remake that has some similarities to the original but does its own thing in the long run. I think this is a fantastic slasher movie and a fantastic Christmas horror movie to watch during the holiday, the holiday season. I almost said Halloween season. The holiday season. Jesus Christ. Anyway, professionalism. Let's move on. At number 4, we have Weapons. Weapons was done by the same guy who did Barbarian. And I'm going to be 100% honest, I'm not the biggest fan of Barbarian. There are a lot of people who loved it. And it's another one of those movies that I like, but I don't love. And the longer Barbarian has sat with me, the less I like it. I won't say it's a bad movie, but it just doesn't work for me completely. And I gave it another watch, and the more it sits with me, the less I like it. Which is why I think Weapons is such an incredible movie, because I was not the biggest fan of Barbarian, and I was dreading going into this movie, but when I watched it, I found myself loving it. The thing about the difference between Weapons and Barbarian is both movies mix comedy with horror. And I don't think the comedy mixed well with Barbarian. I think it kind of ruined the tone a bit. I think Weapons did a much better job at mixing the comedy with the horror. And it's definitely leans more towards horror, so it is more of a horror movie that has funny moments in it. And there are definitely funny moments in it, but I do think they mixed better with the story. It's a very interesting premise, and that's definitely what drew most people in. I am definitely not the first person who said that the premise was so interesting, but it's like all most of us knew going into this film is in this small town at around 2:15 in the morning, 17 kids ran out of their houses and disappeared. And the movie is dealing with this town trying to figure out what the hell happened. The movie does get a little more complex as it goes on, but that is such a great hook. You know, just it sets up this mystery, and now we're just trying to figure out what the hell happened. And this is a movie that definitely follows. It does kind of do a similar thing to Barbarian. Barbarian did this too, where you were following one story and then you'd follow a second story. Weapons does it similarly. We're following different people. So we'll start off by following one person, and then we'll go follow the same events, but from a different person's perspective, and then we'll follow another person, and, you know, following the events from that person's perspective. So we're seeing these events all from these different perspectives, and then it eventually all comes together in the third act. Like I said, I was worried going into this movie, because I was not as big on Barbarian as many people. I was worried that the same thing was going to happen with Weapons, but it didn't. I was completely drawn in by the story. I think there are some legitimately good creepy moments. I like where it goes in the third act, because I didn't know where it was. I mean, because you set up that kind of mystery, and just a bunch of kids running out of their house and disappearing. It can be very... There is definitely a risk of not being able to pay that off, not having the answer to that mystery being a satisfying answer. But this movie manages to do that. I know a lot of people have seen this movie, but I don't want to spoil it for the few who have not. And I love how it explores how easily people in a small town can turn against one person. Because one of the main characters is the teacher, who was the teacher of all these students who disappeared. Like the majority of, all the students who disappeared were in her class. And because of that, it causes so many people to turn against her. It shows that when something weird happens, something weird that nobody can explain, how quickly people want to find someone to blame. It's like, this is something weird, it's unexplained, we don't know why it happened, we need to have someone to blame. We need to have somebody we can point the finger at and say it's your fault. Because people can't really handle something not having an answer, something just being unexplainable. So when you have someone to blame, that can be a very scary thing. And that's what creates tension in the first part of the movie. And then it goes into all these other parts and creates tension in other ways. This movie does a great job at creating tension in various different ways. And I love how crazy this movie goes. And I love the explanation for what's going on here. I won't spoil it here. And this has one of the best third acts of 2025. So, as someone who was not as big into Barbarian, I loved Weapons, and I am very glad that I was able to enjoy Weapons, because I was very worried going into this movie. I thought I was not going to like it, but I ended up loving it. At number 3 is Cannibal Mukbang. This is another one where I am kind of cheating, because much like the Toxic Avenger remake, this was a film that got its festival run in 2023, but it did not get its wider release until 2025, so I'm counting it as a 2025 movie. Cannibal Mukbang is probably the movie that surprised me the most in 2025. This is a smaller independent film with a small budget. And I knew nothing about this movie. I knew nothing about this movie, but then I had heard about it, and it piqued my curiosity. So I went in almost completely blind, not knowing what I was going to think, just thinking, oh, this is a movie that I can just, watch to, just to put on in the background. Or just, I thought it was just going to be a movie that I watched and said, oh, okay, that was good, and then moved on. And I'm shocked by how much I loved it. Like, so many other movies that came out this year had a decent chance because, other people were talking about them, other people knew about them, and there was all this stuff going on. This one, had barely anybody talking about it. And it won me over so much, which is why I think it deserves the number 3 spot. Cannibal Mukbang is a love story with cannibalism. Which brings me to the third reason, the other reason why I'm putting it in the 3rd spot. So this is a cannibal love story, much like the movie Bones and All. Bones and All came out in 2022, and that is another cannibal love story about these 2 people who eat people, and they basically find each other and fall in love. And that is the very basics of the story. There's a lot more going on, but anyway, but that is the basics. A lot of people loved Bones and All, so much so that they would put it in their top 5 horror movies of the year. I found myself very disappointed in that movie. As a matter of fact, I do not like Bones and All. I know I'm in the minority here, but it was. But one of the reasons why I didn't like it was it's a cannibal romance movie, and that's the main part, a romance movie, and it suffers from something that so many movies suffer from nowadays, where the filmmakers are trying to make the characters more realistic, but they think by doing, the way to do that is by giving them a personality-ectomy. Basically giving them no personality, so they're just kind of dull. And for me, that really hurts, especially in something that is supposed to be a love story. Because these characters, their emotions are so, taken down because the filmmakers are trying to make it seem more realistic, I never once bought the fact that they loved each other. It's like these characters are so, there's so much lack of emotion in these characters that I never bought the fact that they were in love with each other. It felt like there was no passion in their relationship. For these 2 people who are supposed to be falling in love with each other, it didn't seem like there was any passion there. It's probably just me. It probably is just me. And I know there are plenty of people who are going to disagree with me on that, and that's fine. Cannibal Mukbang gave me what I wanted from Bones and All. It gave me 2 people engaging in cannibalism that were falling in love with each other. I felt the passion in these characters. It really felt like they were legitimately falling in love with each other. The premise of Cannibal Mukbang is this guy named Mark is this very reserved, shy, introverted guy. And through certain means, I won't go into details, but through certain means, he runs into this woman named Ash. And they start talking to each other, and they start developing an attraction to each other. And since cannibalism is in the title, long story short, Mark finds out that Ash is a cannibal. And there is a slight supernatural element to the cannibalism in this movie, but I don't want to say more than that, because I know a lot of people have not heard of this movie. There is this fascinating relationship built between these 2. This is legitimately a romantic cannibal movie. While it could be in the category of a rom-com, it's more quirky than it is funny. But it's done so well. And the characters have such good chemistry together. And, it's just they do so well together that you're just you're rooting for these guys. It's I want this relationship to work out, even though it's fucked up because there's cannibalism involved. This is a very underrated movie. Cannibal Mukbang, I think, is a hidden gem, and I think more people should check it out. And that's one of the reasons why I gave it the number 3 spot. I loved Weapons, but this little movie I knew nothing about, and then when I watched it, I was surprised by how much I loved it. Everybody's talking about Weapons. Rightfully so. Weapons is a great movie. But I think a lot of people should check out Cannibal Mukbang because it is definitely one of the most underrated gems of 2025. Number 2 is The Long Walk. Now, I've heard some people say that The Long Walk is not a horror movie, but watching it, it's definitely a horror movie. It was horrific to me. So yes, this is a movie based on a Stephen King book, and many people say that this was a Stephen King story that could never be adapted to film. But here it is, adapted to film, and it is a fantastic movie. This and my number 1 horror movie are definitely my favorite movies of the year. I was so drawn into this story, and it's like, for those who have read the book and those who have seen the movie, you know what it is, but for those who have not seen it, it takes place in the not-too-distant future, because every future is not too distant, where the economy is basically collapsed, and a lot of people are in poverty, and you have these group of young men who enter this raffle, and they are chosen, a small group of them is chosen to take part in this event known as the Long Walk, where basically you just walk. You walk and walk continuously without stopping. And if you go too slow or you stop for too long, you are killed. Not in some grand way, not in some flashy, bloody, gory scene. You're just shot in the head. And we're following these characters on this long walk. And they keep doing this until there's only one person left, and that one person gets a shit ton of money and some kind of wish. And it is so well done. And it's literally a movie where people are just walking. They're just walking this entire time. And the movie does a good job at making these some of the deepest characters of any movie this year. And one of the most suspenseful movies of the year. I love simplicity in movies. I love complex stories, but I also love simplicity. And I have always said that I think simplicity can work best for horror. I love my more complex ideas and my more wild ideas. But I think I've always said that there is an artistry to simplicity. And this is one of the simplest movies out there. Just people walking. And if you stop walking, you die. And it is a perfect example of why likable characters are so important in a movie. Because we're following all these people on this journey as they're walking down this road continuously. And we grow to like these people. Like, they do such a good job at developing these characters. And they're all in this walk. Like, we barely leave the walk. We're always on this road, walking with them. But it's never boring. It's always interesting. And they do such a good job at developing these characters just through the conversations they have and just their time on this road. And it's heartbreaking because we know that not all of them are going to live. We know only one of them is going to live. And we have grown to we've grown to really like all these characters. And I love how they do such a good job at developing these characters. They're not just these one-dimensional people. Like, one of the most fascinating sequences, one of the most fascinating characters to me is this guy who comes across like he's going to be the bully. And you know those Stephen King bullies. You know, they're just bullies. They're kind of one-dimensional. And this is a little bit of a spoiler, but it shows how great this movie is. So this guy is coming across, he's the bully. And he starts fucking with this kid. And as a result of fucking with this kid, that kid ends up getting shot. And the bully is not just a one-dimensional character. He doesn't just go, so what? When it happens, it affects him. Like, at first he's laughing at this kid because he's fucked with this kid, but then that kid gets shot, and he's just like, he just pauses. He goes, oh shit. And that sequence stays with him and becomes a big part of his character. Because, like, he didn't know the consequences of his actions until he saw the consequences of his actions. I love this movie. It was so close to being number 1. There are some great lines in here that have stuck with me all year and will stick with me well past this year. I can't wait to watch this movie again, show it to some friends of mine. It's got to be the right friends because it is a depressing movie. But just like the main reason why it made like the top 2 spot is because taking that simple idea of just these people walking down the road and making it one of the deepest, one of the most suspenseful, and one of the most interesting movies that came out all year. But it did not quite make the number 1 spot. It was very close. I will say this was very close. But the number 1 spot is probably a very, very predictable movie. I know I am not the only one who had it at number 1, but this movie affected me a little more than The Long Walk. And it's anticlimactic, I know, but let's get into it. My number 1 horror movie of the year is Sinners. I know. So many people are having this at their number 1. And I'm one of them. I am someone who has gotten vampired out over the years, but I've slowly been rediscovering my love for vampire movies. So the fact that I have a vampire movie at number 1 should tell you how good this movie is. Now, yes, a lot of people say it is similar from Dusk Till Dawn. And there definitely are similarities from Dusk Till Dawn. But I am not one to fault for a movie being similar to another movie. I mean, there are so many movies that have been made to cash in on other movies. Look at The Magnificent Seven, that was made to cash in on Seven Samurai. The Dollars trilogy, Fistful of Dollars for a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which are considered some of the greatest westerns ever made, were made specifically to cash in on American westerns. So that doesn't bother me too much. And while there are similarities between Sinners and From Dusk Till Dawn, there is so much different between the two that I think both can stand on their own. Sinners was the best viewing experience and theatrical experience I had all year. This was the first time in a long time that after I watched the movie, I wanted to go back and watch it again. And I got one of my friends to come and watch the movie with me. This is the first time in a long time that I saw a movie twice in theaters. That doesn't happen too often. So when that happens, that's a very, very special thing. And my friend loved the movie. The combination of music into the story, for me, is incredible. While I can't call Sinners a musical, music is such an integral part of the story that if you removed the music from it, it would not be the same movie, and it would not nearly be as effective. This movie, does things with vampires that you see in vampire lore, but it also does things differently. Like it does some things different that you don't always see in vampire lore. The vampires don't even come in until like the halfway point of the movie. But the film is still so interesting that I remember when I went into it, knowing that it was a horror movie, as the movie was going on, I forgot that it was a horror movie. And I didn't mind. It wasn't until the vampires finally showed up that I said, oh yeah, that's right, this is a horror movie. But it's still so well done and so, the film is so good and the story is so interesting that the fact that you forget it's a horror movie is not a negative against the film. The attention to detail, the historic attention to detail, is amazing. Like, there's this sequence where you have this Chinese family. They have a store, and the daughter has to go get the mother, and the woman crosses the street and gets her mother in a different store on the other side of the street. When I first watched that, I thought, well, that's odd. But then, watching it and looking into it more, it's like, oh my god, that's historically accurate. Like, Asian people were, back in the time, a little more accepted by the white people of America, and this was back when segregation, this was during segregation. So when you would have the black stores on one side of the streets and the white stores on the other side of the streets, and Asian people were the only one who were allowed to mingle between the two. So they would have their own street for the black side, and then they would have a store on the black side of the street and a store on the white side of the street. That is such an incredible attention to detail. And of course, you know, you have the Smokestack Twins. Michael B. Jordan. This was the movie that made me love this guy. I always thought he was a good actor, but this was the movie that made me fall in love with him as an actor and say, yeah, this guy's great because he's playing twins in this movie, and he's playing two different twins, and you kind of forget that he's not a twin. Like, the performance is so good that there are times where you forget that it's the same actor playing two different people, and that's incredible. And the vampire stuff is great. The music is great. The sequence in this movie that so many people remember, the "I lied to you" sequence, where you have one of the main characters, Sammy, playing a guitar, and I won't say more about this scene for people who haven't seen it, but that's one of the best scenes That's one of the best scenes I've ever seen in a movie, and it stuck with me. When I saw that sequence, I thought, even if the rest of the movie sucks, this is the best moment of the year. And luckily, the rest of the movie didn't suck. But then when I brought my friend, and I was so excited for her to see that scene. And it was one of those things, like, you know when you're watching a movie that you've seen before and you're showing it to a friend of yours. And you don't really watch the movie, you watch their reaction to it. She was, like, her reaction was incredible. And I looked at her, and she looked at me afterwards and said, "That was beautiful." It's like, it was. It really was. Everybody who has talked about Sinners has already said all that there can be said about Sinners. I can't really add anything more to that. Sinners is my favorite movie of the year. It's my favorite horror movie of the year, followed very closely by The Long Walk. But yes, I loved Sinners. I loved the mixture of music with the story. This was just... This was my favorite viewing experience of the year. That's all I can say. I've seen the movie more than once since then, twice in theaters, and my love for it has only grown. I know many people are going to have it at the #1 spot, but there's kind of a reason for that. I mean, if that many people have it at their #1 spot, makes it a very good movie. And unfortunately, it has now been overhyped for people who have not seen it, unfortunately. So I can understand people being disappointed in its watching it now because it has been so overhyped. If you can go into it, try to lower your expectations so that way you're not disappointed by the movie being overhyped. But anyway, I loved Sinners, and many other people love Sinners. That's all that can really be said about it. And yeah, that's it. That is my top 10 favorite horror movies from 2025. There are movies coming out in 2026 that I'm a little more interested in. So we'll see what 2026 brings us. And now, of course, it's your turn to list your favorite horror movies down below. No wrong answers here. Like, your favorite movies are your favorite movies. So whatever you loved, put it down below. And yeah, and next week we're going to talk about my top 10 horror movies that I discovered this year and watched for the first time. So stay tuned for that one. I want to wish everybody a happy new year, and I want to thank everybody for sticking with this channel for yet another year. I know I'm not the biggest YouTube channel out there, but the people who stick with me and watch my stuff, that truly means a lot to me. The fact that people take time out of their day to watch my videos, and the fact that people hang out in my little corner of the internet really does mean a lot to me. So thank you all so much for sticking with me for another year. I hope you all had a good New Year's Eve, and I hope you all have an amazing 2026. We will see you in the next video, and until next time, this is the Maniac, here to remind you that the Grindhouse will never die.